Two senior people in the Biden administration who clearly observed the president's cognitive decline because they have eyes and ears are on book tours. And because they're on book tours, they're in very high profile ways being asked to account for what it is that they saw and what they didn't see and what they did about it. So here's first Kamala Harris, former vice president. She's basically taken the position in her book, we should have been pressed harder. It was wrong to not press the Bidens harder to decide whether he was up for the job. But doesn't want to acknowledge that she ever saw cognitive decline. And implicit in all this is they say, well, he wasn't up maybe for running for re-election, but he could still be president, as if running for re-election is a harder job than being president. Anyway, here's Kamala Harris being pressed by a very good reporter from Australian TV about what she saw. And watch, to this reporter's credit, when Kamala Harris offers up a diversionary word salad, the reporter comes right back at her. Here's S4, please.
Wasn't Joe Biden, then, to put it on him, wasn't his refusal to recognize his own frailties the reason that you faced a nearly impossible task?
I ran against Donald Trump for president, and Donald Trump ran on a platform that was, in large part, I believe, misrepresenting his intentions to the American people. I do believe that there are a fair number of people that voted for Donald Trump who believed him when he told them that his first priority on day one is going to be to bring down prices. And he didn't. And you combine that misrepresentation of intention with also what was at play in terms of massive amounts of mis and disinformation.
Now, forgive me.
And a truncated calendar in terms of the clock.
I want to interrupt you because that is a world-class pivot, but it is not the question that I asked you, which is about Joe Biden's failure to recognize his own frailties and what that did to you. The question is about Joe Biden. Are you still reluctant to criticize the former president?
In what regard, please?
Well, just in terms of that question. So you went on.
What exactly would you like to ask? Be more specific, if you don't mind.
Was it Joe Biden's decision, his failure to recognize his own frailties in that position, that put you in the position that made it almost impossible to win that race?
He was not frail as president of the United States.
But he had frailties. We all saw the debate.
I do believe that Joe Biden had the capacity to be president of the United States, and I have never doubted that he had the capacity to be president of the United States. If you want to talk about whether he had the ability to endure what a race for president of the United States would require in that political environment in 2024, as I've said in the book, I had concerns.
I'm just wondering, is there a reason why you won't go to that prolonged frailty question? Now, we saw the debate, we saw the difficulty he had marshalling his thoughts.
I have answered that question. I do not believe
that I think it's just hard watching the debate to see how there could not be a problem long term with someone who can't marshal their thoughts. I'm not saying his acuity wasn't present.
I talked about that in the book. And I also mentioned the context in which that debate occurred. And you'll probably remember how I talked about that in terms of what his travel schedule had been, that what he had been enduring in terms of the timing of that debate. I talk about it extensively in the book. I'm not shying away from that. That's why I wrote it in the book, because I do know it's a question people had.
All right, so I give the reporter credit for a lot of that. But again, centering this conversation around the debate is just ahistorical. It's not serving the public interest because this was all visible before the debate. So she gets off the hook. And again, she says, I never had any doubt that he was up to the job. Again, and I've said this before, he had good days. There were days when he could do the job. I'll repeat, he was not as far gone as the Republicans claim, but he was not as with it as the Democrats claim. And to claim they never saw anything, it's not about what did Kamala Harris see in private. It's about watching C-SPAN. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre is on her book tour. It's not going as well as the Harris book tour. She's not selling as many books, and she's dealing with a lot of really tough interviews. She did one with the New Yorker that everybody's talking about, where she just over and over repeated nonsense. She went so far in the New Yorker interview to claim the subtitle of the book is about the Trump administration rather than the Biden administration. The whole thing is bonkers. But here's a typically evasive answer from her about what she saw about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, if anything. S3, please.
Did I see someone or engage with someone that was not all there, right? That was not paying attention or listening or engaging with me. I saw someone who was sharp, understood history, understood policy, and I would get called in, and I said this this morning, I would get called into the Oval Office, and I'd be like, oh no, because I knew whatever he asked me, I had to be prepared for an answer.
I mean, again, did she have interactions with Joe Biden where he was okay? Sure. But did she watch him do all these things we watched in public before the debate? She did. So those are kind of par for the course. Those are reminiscent of what we saw during the campaign. Now, two people who testified before the House committee where they released their depositions under oath. One is this guy, Ian Sams. You probably saw him on MSNBC and other places 1,000 times. He was kind of the main spokesperson to fight back against the independent counsel investigation and as called on along with the press secretary, as much as anybody else on camera to say, nothing to see here, Joe Biden was fine. Okay. Now, when he gets before the committee, they start talking to him about, well, how much contact did you have with Joe Biden to be able to represent to the whole country on behalf of the government that Joe Biden was fine? Listen to this embarrassing exchange with Ian Sams before the House committee. S1, please.
How often would you say that you interacted with the president in person?
I interacted with him pretty infrequently.
So weekly, monthly, what are we talking about?
Very infrequent. I think I met with the president a handful of times during my tenure in the White House.
I want to introduce Exhibit 2 as it's being passed around. It's a
Thank you.
tweet from Alex Thompson at Axios summarizing, pulled a couple quotes of an interview you did on MSNBC, and one of the quotes says, when I deal with him, he is sharp, him being President Biden. And he is asking tough questions. Do you recall this?
I got to say, that doesn't look anything like the president that I know. When I deal with him, he's sharp. He's asking tough questions. That's the President Biden that so many of us experience every single day.
So this statement, the basis for this statement was your interactions somewhere between 1 and 5 times.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that's a bit misleading?
I think it was pretty direct and honest, and said that when I do deal with him, he's sharp, and he was asking incisive questions during my meetings with him.
But you dealt with him 5 times in 24 months. That's not exactly a large scope of knowledge on how he interacts with staff. You don't think it's missing some context?
I don't.
Do you think that statement suggests that you deal with him more than you did?
I don't think so. I mean, I spoke about my own interactions with him. That's the President Biden that we experience every day.
But to the best of your recollection, 4 meetings, 2 were in person.
2 that were, the 2 that I described to you that I, at the very onset in the Oval, one was a Zoom where he was at Camp David, and I was a participant in the meeting. The phone call, I think there was another meeting, or another engagement, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to get an understanding of. So the immunity decision was virtual with him at Camp David. There was a phone call regarding Hunter Biden's testimony.
Yes.
An in-person meeting regarding Hunter Biden's testimony. And one other in-person meeting?
About Special Counsel Hur's testimony.
About Special Counsel. So 2 in-person meetings.
Sure, at least that, yes.
Okay.
Good reputation, nice guy, supposed to be a smart guy. To come out on television after the debate, to spin for the president, to tell people don't believe what you see, and to say this is the president we deal with every day, we see every day. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And it's getting next to no coverage. There's been next to no coverage in the mainstream media, the dominant media, about a guy who went on television as the main spokesperson to say Joe Biden is fine, nothing to see here. And now he says, met with him twice, 1 Zoom, 1 phone call. Okay? Now, that's a big story. Here's a bigger story. The guy who was White House chief of staff, Biden had 2 chiefs of staff, Ron Klain and then Jeff Zients. Jeff Zients testified also. And Jeff Zients never said anything in public about concerns about Joe Biden, allowed the administration to, and people like Ian Sams and Karine Jean-Pierre to go out and say nothing to see here. It's all fine. He can be the candidate. He can be president. What was Jeff Zients saying behind the scenes? Here's one of the few places to write this up. Alex Thompson in Axios wrote this up. Here's his characterization of what Jeff Zients said. I'll read it to you. Former Biden Chief of Staff Jeff Zients told the panel, this is the House committee, that he, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, and VA Secretary Dennis McDonough all expressed concern about Biden continuing his reelection campaign after the debate. Zients told lawmakers that within a few days of the debate, Biden was aware of my view that he thought it was prudent to consider getting out of the race. This is a huge story. Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, he couldn't find people closer to Joe Biden. And yet they expressed doubt. And that's a big deal to tell Joe Biden, the job you want, the job you've wanted your whole life, you shouldn't have it anymore. That's an unbelievable story. Here's Zients in his halting way. Here's Zients talking to the committee, explaining some of this, that they saw a change in their point of view. S4, please.
Who on the cabinet was expressing concerns about the president's ability to win re-election?
I recall Gina Raimondo. I recall, but this is for sort of a different reason. I'm very close to Dennis McDonough. So I'm certain I talked to Dennis. I don't remember Dennis having a firm view.
Did you notice a change with, did you notice any change with Mr. Sullivan regarding these conversations after the debate President Biden had with President Trump?
Well, let me articulate my own position first, which is I believed after the debate that it made most sense for the president to exit the race. My recollection, I don't want to speak for Mr. Sullivan, my recollection is he shared that view.
Did Secretary Blinken ever express concern to you about the president's re-election? Okay.
Yes. I don't know where Secretary Blinken netted out in his advice to the president, if he gave his advice to the president. But he definitely, as someone who had worked for years with the president, was concerned.
Strike that. Do you remember any other senator saying they believed that it was time for President Biden to drop out of the race? To you personally?
And that many senators were skeptical, and many believed he should get out. I think there was a level of concern to begin with in terms of age and could he overcome the perception of his age. And then I think there was a belief post-debate that that was not overcomable.
Is it fair to say that following the debate, you were concerned with his ability to win re-election following that debate performance?
That was 100% what was behind my recommendation.
All right. So again, massive story for history, massive story for the Democratic Party. Just to review, Ian Sams, White House spokesman, says the president they saw every day had no problems, and he barely saw the president, barely saw him. And then the White House chief of staff, a laundry list of senior people who had doubts to the point to saying Biden shouldn't be the nominee. That's an incredible story. And you would think this would be covered. There's a lot of news going on in the world. The New York Post is covering it. I'm covering it. But I want to say, we're up to the minute here, how much is this being covered by other places in the so-called dominant media? So for this, I'm going to need my phone by Unplugged, our partners here, to do a secure search here. UpPhone is a great product. It allows you to do searches for anything you need answered while knowing that your personal information, it's going to stay personal and private with no data mining, no hidden trackers. This is a great new product that frees you from giving away your privacy just because you want to do a search. So I'm going to do a search now. I'm going to search Jeff Zients and do a news search and just see. So here we go. Jeff Zients search. And now I look at news. Okay. So here we go. Here's a New York Post story that talks about it. Here is a story in the Washington Examiner that talks about it. Axios talks about it. Politico has a story, but listen to the lead of the Politico story. Politico says, House GOP concludes investigation into Biden's alleged mental decline. The House's GOP's much ballyhooed investigation into former President Joe Biden's alleged cognitive decline has largely ended with a thud. Largely ended with a thud. And now I look at the full search results. I don't see anything from the New York Times. I don't see anything from the Washington Post. I don't see anything from NBC or ABC or CBS. This is a massive story. It's a massive story, and they're not covering it. Okay, I did this search again with Secure Search using my UpPhone by Unplugged. I recommend this this phone to you. I've been using it. It frees you up. It frees up your mind to recognize that you're taking back your digital privacy. Go to unplug.com/Mark right now. Get 25% off your phone case with a purchase of this great new phone. And you can learn more about it and order your UpPhone today. Again, go to unplugged.com, buy your phone today. Unplug.com/Mark to get your discount, to get your on the phone case. Unplug.com/Mark. So what did we learn here? We learned that all the original things that we're doing, Democrats lying, Biden Democrats lying, other Democrats staying silent or trying to avoid the truth, and most of all, from my point of view, because it's my profession, people in the media continuing to ignore massive stories. The White House Chief of Staff, the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of State, the Commerce Secretary, and others all saw that there was a problem, that Joe Biden shouldn't be the nominee. They were worried about him losing the election. They should have been worried also about how he was going to continue on as president under the state he was in. This is one of the biggest stories of my career, and much of the dominant media is completely silent about it. It's an outrage, and it's inexplicable. They're compounding the original sin by hoping it all goes away. It will not. You ever notice those creepy ads that pop up on your phone and seem to know exactly where you've been, what you've bought, even the people you've been talking about? You've probably asked yourself, is this phone monitoring me? Well, the truth is, your smartphone is constantly collecting and leaking data without your knowledge and without your consent. Every day, it builds a detailed profile of your life, your location, your habits, your interests, even the people you communicate with. That information is then funneled into an invisible marketplace where it's tracked, analyzed, and sold to the highest bidders. It's not just annoying, it's invasive, and it's happening all the time. But the UpPhone by Unplugged is different. It's designed to protect your privacy from the ground up. No hidden trackers, no data mining, just a secure, streamlined smartphone experience that puts you back in control. Whether you're texting, browsing, or using any app, the UpPhone ensures your personal information stays personal. It's the phone for people who are done being watched. Are you ready to take back your digital privacy? You can. Visit unplugged.com/Mark and get $25 off a phone case with the purchase of a phone. Learn more and order your UpPhone today. That's unplugged.com/Mark, because your life should be yours, not theirs.